So last week I upgraded my iPhone 7 Plus and got an iPhone XS. Now, I really love the big plus-sized iPhones, but I wanted to change it up, so I went with the smaller model. I've had this phone for about a week, and I'd love to share my thoughts. And since I believe most people are like me and are upgrading from an iPhone 7 or older instead of an iPhone 10, I'm going to be comparing the XS to the 7 Plus a few times in the review, so you can get an idea of what kind of improvements you can expect. Anyway, let's just jump right into the review. Let's start with the design, because the first thing you really notice when you hold a new iPhone is just how premium it feels. Now, I really love the look and feel of the 7 Plus, but the XS really is a beautiful piece of tech. The stainless steel sides are absolutely gorgeous. It's still sandwiched between two pieces of glass, so you're really going to want some kind of protection, whether it's a case or Apple Care. That premium design flows into the next point, which is the display. It's the same 458 pixels per inch OLED panel from last year, but it still looks amazing. It's hands down the best I've ever seen on an iPhone. Colors are stunning and dynamic without feeling oversaturated, and the blacks are so inky and dark that they bleed into the tiny bezel, making the interface look that much more immersive. And games really look incredible on this display. Seriously, this is the best I've ever seen Sonic in my life. Of course, this being an S update, the notch makes its return, as much as Apple is trying to hide it. And I'm going to say something crazy here, but I kind of like the notch. I don't love it, and it's not like I prefer it to the idea of a bezel-less iPhone, but I don't know, something about the way the pixels are perfectly cut around the corners of the notch makes it really visually interesting. But what do I know? For me, Face ID was a big question mark because Touch ID was so incredibly fast and secure that I was sure Face ID was going to be a noticeable downgrade. But so far, Face ID has been pretty great. Apple put tons of work into making this a worthy replacement to Touch ID, and it shows. Face ID is both fast and accurate, and being able to unlock your phone without touching any buttons feels great, and paying for things online feels almost futuristic. Ultimately, Face ID is not quite as fast as Touch ID, but it is really close, and it technically requires less actions, so it's a winner in my book. Oh, and with Face ID, you can unlock your phone when your hands are wet, which is really useful. That's something that just didn't work with Touch ID. This update also brings a new IP68 water-resistant rating to both iPhone models, which means if you drop your iPhone in the pool, just let it dry off and it'll be fine. Since we're talking about Face ID, I also want to touch on the lock screen, since you will be interacting with this screen more than any other. The changes to the quick access controls, turning them into simple 3D touch buttons, is brilliant. No more failed swipes to open the camera like older models. I'm still hoping Apple will one day bring back the large Alm Mart on the lock screen that they dropped in iOS 11, but I guess you can still kind of see the Alm Mart, right? Right? Ugh, yeah, it's hideous. Now, since we're talking about music, and one of the big new features is the improved speakers, let's talk about that. And to be honest, they're pretty great. They're much louder and crisper, and I can even hear some low end. It's still the same setup where they combine the earpiece and the bottom driver to create a stereo pair, but it seems both speakers were drastically improved. And since my 7 Plus also has stereo speakers, I'll give you a quick comparison. Yeah, do I even have to play anything else? They're miles ahead. Of course, they sound very different in person than on YouTube, but that's just to give you an idea of how drastic the improvement is over older iPhones. There's still not quite enough volume to replace your Bluetooth speaker, but if you're watching a quick video or listening to a song, you're going to be pretty happy with how these sound. And at a time where most smartphone makers are treating speakers as an afterthought, it's nice to see Apple try and improve the experience for their customers. As with every year, Apple has once again improved their iPhone CPU, and this year brings the A12 Bionic. It features a unique 6-core design with 2 high-performance cores and 4 high-efficiency cores. Apple is claiming they get up to 50% better GPU performance, while bumping up the CPU to be 15% faster. Now, this is more of an evolution on last year's A11 Bionic, hence the same name, but the iPhone still manages to run buttery smooth and opens apps faster than ever. Now, Apple is also claiming to get 50% better power efficiency from those lower cores, giving the XS an extra 30 minutes of battery life and the XS Max an extra hour and a half. But I gotta be honest, coming from a 7 Plus, I was a little disappointed with the battery at first. It hasn't died on me yet, but it's gotten closer than I like. However, now that I've picked up a wireless charging pad, it's been much easier to keep my battery topped off throughout the day. Now, aside from the new larger model, the biggest update between the iPhone X and the XS is the camera. Now, both versions have the exact same specs, so unlike previous plus-sized iPhones, both are rocking 12 megapixel sensors with optical image stabilization on both lenses. On paper, it's the same exact specs as last year's iPhone, but now the camera sensors are physically larger, letting in more light and resulting in better conditions for just about every shot, but especially in low light. And Smart HDR is a new software feature that gives photos better highlight and shadow detail when it's applied. And now you can adjust portrait photos after the fact with a depth slider that works really well in a lot of cases. It's not just a simple blurring of the background either, instead using the two cameras to create a depth map, which you can adjust after the fact. It's pretty fun to play with, but you should keep it off the most extreme aperture speeds, as those tend to look a little too artificial. The front-facing camera also looks great, but Apple has been getting a lot of backlash, as the XS applies some pretty aggressive skin smoothing on top of your selfies, and for now there's no way to disable this, so definitely be aware of that. And if you want to know more about the camera and all the improvements made, check out CNET's article going through each change in detail. I'm going to link it down in the description. So what are my final thoughts? I gotta be honest, I love this iPhone a lot more than I thought I would. Tons of changes like the camera, the display, the speakers, Face ID, and just the way the phone feels is a massive leap from the 7 Plus. Now, $1,000 is a lot to spend on a phone, but this phone is a monster in terms of performance and quality. Now that might not sound like enough to justify the price, but take a look at the iPhone 5S, which was released in 2013 and is still being supported today on iOS 12, and even sees performance increase. When you consider that, it's easy to see this phone lasting 5 years itself, especially when you consider that beast of a processor that is the A12. But that's it for now, guys. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up. This is my first video ever, so your feedback would be hugely appreciated. Also, let me know if there's anything I missed, or if you have any questions about the XS, and I'll answer them as best as I can. That's it.